Good morning. I'm working tirelessly for this subject. I want everybody in my cantonment to be educated on various things, various laws. I don't know how many people of you are getting educated or not, and even if how many people are getting aware. These videos are even being sent to the ministry, to the entire DG office and its subordinate officers. I expect and I pray anybody who's in relation with their COs and DOs must share it with them so that they can give you their perception on these videos, whether I'm speaking wrong, whether I'm speaking right. This is how the confidence on either side will grow. Okay? Today we'll talk a very important subject, and that is, every subject is important, but this is very vital. How is it vital? Because this is a document which creates our ownership, which creates not only our possession, it even would create our ownership. And I had always been talking of some cut dates. These cut dates were related to the sale deed. So today's topic is, how do proprietary rights flow through these sale deeds? Now, what are proprietary rights? A right holder is entitled to use and occupy the land during his lifetime. This is one. Two, that when he dies, the title passes to his descendants or through the customary rules of inheritance, which may include daughters, which may not include daughters. The rightful holder of this land is entitled to tenancy. He is rendering his tenancy to somebody. Remember the House Accommodation Act, which only suffixed to our tenancy, that we are the owners and the ministry or the army officer would be a tenant. So these were the three ways of proprietary rights. Further on, if you see, a rightful holder can sell, mortgage his land to all these customary restrictions. But in Punjab, we had a little different happening, that generally this grant, or what you call this land, which was owned by the family, would be inherited by the family only. It is not going to go to an individual. So it is something like the original kingship goes to the original family kingship only. A British officer, Mr. Thompson, had regarding this transfer, that in some parts of India, property in land is that which is vested in the family and not in the individual. So this vestment is again in the family. The Land Revenue Act does not attempt to define this word called landowners. It merely states that the term does not include tenant or any assignee of land revenue. It's a little vicious definition, but does include a person whom a holding has been transferred, or an estate or a holding has been let in farm under this act for the recovery of land revenue. So he is trying to mix two things in that land ownership in this act. But finally he says, if you are paying the land revenue, you could be held that way. Here I'll explain you some of the old languages, which are the vernacular languages which were used for villagers, called Mauza. And for our estates were called mahals, not even houses. Now, how is this mahal defined? It is any parcel or parcels of land which may be separately assessed with the public revenue. Now, this is the mahal. The whole property of the person settled within the mahal being held hypothecated to government for the sum assessed upon it. So this is the definition of mahal during that period. Now the Britishers, because knew English, they converted this word mahal into estates. Now what is this estate is to be explained. It could be any area under which a separate record of rights have been made and which has been separately assessed for land revenue. This is very important. And where the local government may by journal rules or special orders declare it to be a state. Friends, aren't we called a state? Many sale deeds you will find this word. So why am I explaining you these words? Is only because now sale deeds will start flowing in, and you will read a lot many sale deeds where these words are being used. Now, how were sale deeds being performed way back in 1806 or 1798? So these were various GGOs which were later repealed, Regulation 1 of 1798 and Regulation 17 of 1806. These were fully repealed because the transfers were moreover fraud, they said, or they were little clandestine into the mortgaging of these mahals or estates. And Act 9 of 1842 of Governor General in Council was repealed. Similarly, in Bombay Regulation 5 of 1827, but here only Section 15 was repealed. There were other statutes and acts which were repealed. Bengal Regulation 8 of 1819, which is still in force. So, under various these Governor General orders, there were some registrations or documents coming forth. But we presume these are vernacular, 400, 300 years old documents. Whether in my custody or your custody, it's been interpreted by the court. The Awadh Law of 1876, Punjab Law Act 1872 incorporated the local customs and the uses of prevailing areas. So these were some recognitions given for the documents of sale. Now coming to cantonments, 1864 Act, Section 10 gave powers of the cantonment magistrate as a sub-registrar of a sub-district. Now, why was it made a sub-district? Because from the main district, the cantonment was created into even a sub-district. So, he was the sub-registrar of it. Under which act was he registering these sale deeds? I have some sale deeds of 1855. How? They are on 3 anna papers or 2 anna papers. So, under the Indian Registration Act 3 of 1877, these documents were being registered. These powers were given under Section 32, subsection 2 of the Cantonment Act 1889. So many things were happening. And by the time 38 years had gone and this house accommodation bill came up in 1898, where section 3 of clause 5 very clearly says that land situated within cantonment boundary pillars was presumed to be government lands provided the private owner came up and proved his ownership. Now, why did they say this? Because even in 1898, you will be surprised, I'm laughing, the availability of that grant document was not forthcoming. So, it was a presumption. And because it was a presumption and the British never wanted to take on presumption and make an act, so they said, okay, fine, to make this act viable, let's leave the part of ownership. Because till now, no grant has been proved and government itself is unable to show the grant there. So let's leave it there, drop the idea. If we have to enforce this House Accommodation Act, let's go by section 2 of it, bracket F, which says that we will not be termed as grantees, but we will be called owners from now on. So we have our lawful titles, we have everything in our hand. I have already explained you, if we were private lands, we were to be excluded from the military boundary pillars. Where is all this? Finally, this bill became a act notified on 5th November 1898. Now let's move straight. During this period, the Transfer of Properties Act 1882 was made, notified on 1st July 1882 for British territories. But it was not for those which were under Part B states, or more specifically Bombay, Punjab and Delhi, till November 1956. You'll be surprised. 1956, even after independence. So how come this applicability of TPA Act 1882 was not for the whole British India? 1864, we've been saying that this act is for British India. Where is this British India defined? Or where is this India defined? Please read Journal Clause Act 1887. You'll be surprised. 1882 TPA Act was not enforced in Burma, Bombay, in Punjab, which was including Pepsu and Satluj state. Finally, in Bombay, it got effected in 1893, somewhere in 1st January. Similarly, in Sindh also it got effected in 1915. Burma, it got effected in 1924. Similarly notified for Manipur and so on. But I would be astonished to see, I came across some judgments and some notifications which said that for Punjab it could not be notified till the Punjab Municipal Acts came in. That was 1911. So, what were those sections which finally brought this under Punjab Municipal Act? That was section 241. So friends, even TPA Act could not be notified. It went later on. Then we move on to the next subject. Cantonment Land Administration Rules, 1925 Rule 4 and 1937 Rule 10, which is the maintenance of Journal Land Register. Under this rule, the MU was entrusted and something was entrusted to the CO. He will maintain a mutation register, whether of the bazaar area or of the which is so called the bungalow area. Now every transfer, it very clearly says in land cantonment register under section 54, 59, 107 and 123 of the TPA Act 1882, which is informed under subsection 2 of section 287 of the Cantonment Act 1924. When any transfer or registration is done, it is the duty of the Tehsil to send that registry to that very office from where in that area the registry is. Now what does section 54 says? It talks of sale. It's a transfer of ownership in exchange of some price paid or not promised, which could be later fulfilled. 59 talks of mortgage. 107 talks of lease, because all these immovable properties which were leased had the right to be transferred to somebody else. We were not leases where these TP Act was not applicable. Now the last and foremost 123 called is of transfer through gift. Friends, I have laid a lot of hands on these registries. I have mortgage documents of these areas. I have gifts, and I must share here an information that even we have a living legend, that is Colonel Jalnawala from Ahmednagar, who has shared his registry of 1865, and they are the inheritors till date. So will that, what I told you earlier in my video, I salute that family, that they have been in possession, there has been no sale deed, there could have been no admission deed. How could then the law from 1865 to 1938, that sign and admission deed, come? So, what are we selling? We are selling an immovable property. That the department admits. We are selling an house. We are not selling anything which is not immovable. Now, what does the TPA Act or the Journal Clauses Act says or defines this word immovable? If you read the Registration Act, which I just told you, which was of 1877, further way down in 1908. It very clearly says when a document which sells an immovable property attached to earth means rooted in earth, as in the case of trees and shrubs, embedded in the earth, as in the case of walls and buildings, attached to what so is embedded for a permanent beneficial enjoyment of that to which it is attached. So these three things we fulfill with this immovable property, which is called a mahal, a estate, or a house. So where will we get these definitions? I was telling you that these definitions will be in the Journal Clauses Act of 1897. You will find the definition of British India, the British possession. I will read section 26 of it. Immovable property shall include land, benefits to arise out of land, and things attached to the earth or permanently fastened to anything attached to the earth. So what are we all trying to prove, going to the court saying ownership and asking for all this? Everything is imbibed to us. We are getting our sale deeds, 1864, 1808 GGO. What are we doing? Why are we doing this? Because of our ignorance. We were not educated on these subjects. Local authorities mean a municipal committee. Now we say we come under the local self-government. So it means a municipality, a district board, a port of commissioners or other authorities legally entitled to or entrusted by the government. Now what are we entrusted by the government? The control and management of these municipal and local funds. Similarly, the cantonment magistrate is subjected to the management of these lands and the cantonment fund. Please try and assimilate these two things, local self-government and local authority. Unfortunately, our people sitting in the ministries and law ministries do not know what a local self-government means. And most of the people now, there is somebody from Jalandhar who keeps harping on municipalization. Way back we were written that we are a local self-government. I have a document of Ambala 1862 and 1944 when the Ambala municipality transferred the lands in the civil areas to the cantonment board. So friends, let's not fancy it. These sale deeds are very important. Once again, I'll rebrush very quickly. Please try and locate your land records. 1938 is my first cut date. Prior to it, 1925 CLA rules, then prior to it 1912 cantonment code, then prior to it 1889 cantonment code, because this will take you behind the House Accommodation Act also, which again in its prefix has said that if you were prior to the notification of your cantonment, you have a sale deed, you are private lands. Do we need to prove? What are we running for? Please, I request, I humbly say people, there may be lot many people who are educated on this subject. There may be more better people on law, maybe better people on, but these cantonment laws and how they were fabricated, how they were purged, how documents were gradually usurped out of these cantonments. We all need to get up and file FIRs. I'm asking something very big today. Okay, if any president, anybody listening to my videos, tell your local president of the association, I'll draft the FIR report, file them in your cantonments, go to the station headquarters, that is the SHO, police, or if not, then the courts. Where are these documents? So these sale deeds are very important and these were legalized in the eyes of laws. So we don't need to get worried whether TP Act came in 1882 or we had a registry of 1855. I wait for your calls and thank you. There are many new people who've been calling me up which I have not even met. I even today want, please, I want that last person living in the cantonment of yours, civil area, which actually will not be able to get up and wake up for himself because his possession is very small. Ask him to watch my videos. Thank you. Good day.